That was really strong coffee. Okay. Afternoon coffee, cookbook corner. That's where it's at. Hey guys, it's Chef Andrea and it's Cookbook Corner. I was not going to record today. I had some other stuff I was doing up here at the studio, but it's absolutely torrential out right now. I don't know if you can hear it on this tin roof behind me. I'm going to put the microphone over there and see if you can hear it. Can you hear it raining out there? It's really coming down. You might end up hearing thunder behind me. But I gotta go grocery shopping. So I'm stuck. So let's do a cookbook corner instead. Okay, let's do it. I put on some coffee as usual. I hope that you have something nice to drink. A cup of hot tea or iced tea, depending on where you are. If you are like me, you're having an afternoon coffee or a morning coffee. I can't get enough coffee. Okay, the cookbook today is the Pat Conroy Cookbook. I'm going to do a little bit of reading out of this, so I'm going to wear my glasses the whole time, but I think the glare shouldn't get us too badly. Oh, it's really coming down now. The Pat Conroy Cookbook. If you are not familiar with Pat Conroy is not a professional chef. What he was a wonderful novelist. He wrote books like The Prince of Tides, The Great Santini, Lords of Discipline, Beach Music. There's many. I hope you'll look them up. I have always been drawn to Pat Conroy as a writer. So many of his stories take place in the part of the country that I grew up in anyway. And I was fortunate enough to get to spend so much of my childhood and all of my high school years in Savannah, Georgia. And did you hear that thunder? He devotes so much of his writing and his novels to South Carolina, Barrier Islands, that whole general area. So it's near and dear to my heart because of that. But Pat Conroy also was a super foodie, like just really dug eating and cooking. He was a great cook. And if you read any of his novels, food always plays a pretty remarkable role in there. There are some amazing food-related scenes in many of his novels. So long before I realized he had a cookbook, I knew that he was definitely intrigued by and interested in food, and he has definitely a way with it. So the Pat Conroy Cookbook. First, let's see what I'm talking about. Pat Conroy Cookbook. And I bought this copy in Charleston at the Visitors Center. I'm sure that you can find this online as well. And here's a weird little side note. I'll have a sip of coffee and then tell you this weird little side note while I listen to the rain. The elementary school that I went to in Atlanta was called the Paideia School. And Pat Conroy's daughters went there also. But that's all I wish, I would love to be like, yeah, man, I went to school with Pat Conroy's daughters. Like, we were there at the same time, but I promise those girls had no idea who I was. And if they did, I'm sure they wouldn't have been remotely interested that my interest in their dad was going to become that I was amazed by his novels, maybe today. Pat Conroy Cookbook, Recipes and Stories of My Life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about also by Pat Conroy, by the way, is on the front page. And so it gives you a listing of his books there. And if you only ever saw the movie Prince of Tides, I highly encourage you to read the book. It's just an incredible novel. But I think I've read everything. The Water is Wide, Great Santini, Lords of Discipline, Prince of Tides, Beach Music. My Losing Season. I'm not sure if I read that, but I did read South Abroad. Okay. His sections in this book are 1, the introduction, I encounter Escoffier. The thing about a novelist writing a cookbook is that it's really fun to read. right? If you never cooked anything out of this, although I really think you should, because the recipes are actually really great in this as well. It's just so fun to read. And when I saw that there was a whole section on Pat Conroy's experience when he dove down the Escoffier rabbit hole. Escoffier is another cookbook that I'll cover in Cookbook Corner for you at some point. It's intense. And I encountered Escoffier when I went to culinary school. And the Escoffier cookbook kind of ruled my world for about 5 years of my life. So introduction, I encounter Escoffier. Chapter 1, Natalie Dupree. Listen, if y'all are from the South, I mean, I don't care where you're from, you've probably heard of Natalie Dupree, but for those of us down in this neck of the woods, like heroine, she is, and I mean, not the drug, like the hero in female form. Although she's kind of a drug, you get super addicted to her. She had one of the original like PBS Saturday afternoon cooking shows. My sister and I used to hang out and watch Natalie Dupree. Oh, she was so great. So he has a whole chapter on Natalie Dupree and her influence on him. Chapter 2, the pleasures of reading cookbooks no one has ever heard of. I wonder why I would find that interesting. So here we are with Cookbook Corner, where I'm sharing cookbooks with you that a lot of people haven't heard of. Not that this is one of them, but I will be bringing some rare gems to the show, I promise. Chapter 3, New Bern. Chapter 4, A Hometown in the Low Country. That chapter, the Hometown in the Low Country, just sings to me. Chapter 5, My First Novelist. It goes on. Chapter 17, Men Grilling. Chapter 16 is oyster roasts. Just oyster roasts. Come on. Are you already intrigued? So, chapter 15, Why Dying Down South is More Fun. I'm sorry to laugh, but Pat Conroy also had a remarkable sense of humor. I am sorry that he passed away. I was very sad when that day came. I mean, you know, we hate losing our heroes in life, and his writing just has been so important in my world. I flagged a couple of recipes. Asparagus and poached egg salad with bacon. That makes me want to make that for dinner. Asparagus with poached egg salad is notable because it is easy to make and it tastes as good as anything on earth. It makes me want to sprint to the kitchen. That's his opening for that recipe. So the thing about a Pat Conroy cookbook, or any really good writer who's put together a great collection, is the writing in it is going to be so enjoyable. And I can literally just crack open any page and start enjoying this book. But I flagged a few others for you guys. Oh gosh, chapter 13, A Southerner in Paris. In the late spring of 1979, I was coming to the end of my time in Paris, and I could feel the lords of discipline moving towards completion. I would walk the city at night paying homage to writers who had lived there before me. I paid homage to Proust at his grave and Pierre Lachaise cemetery, tipping my hat to Heloise and Abelard, and paid my dues to the excesses of my rock and roll generation by spending 10 minutes at the grave of Jim Morrison and the Doors. This is a cookbook, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, his writing is just incredible. I think you're going to love this book. Braised short ribs, do it. What's not to love about that? This is a Southern cookbook, so you better believe there's an oyster roast in here. There's shrimp and grits in here. There's Mama's pound cake in here. You want this book. Pat Conroy's, listen to this, country ham with bourbon glaze. Y'all need to do that for Thanksgiving this year. Get that old turkey. Forget it. Forget it. Country ham with bourbon glaze, and make big fluffy biscuits on the side. Ooh, and cheese grits. Yes. Let's go for a Southern Thanksgiving this year. I'm going to show you this jacket insert that shows you Pat Conroy. There is Mr. Conroy, the author. And this book, cheddar cheese and sausage biscuits, summer chowder. This book has recipes, but it also has these conversations. So while he's going to give you this recipe for shrimp and grits, within it is going to be this conversation about shrimp and grits that you get to read through. This cookbook, while there's no question you could definitely just grab this some random weekday, flip to a page and go, look, that's what I'm going to make for dinner. I really encourage that this be that cookbook that hangs out with you on a Sunday morning with good coffee. Maybe it's raining in the background. And you put on some good music and you just chill out and read this cookbook. Read some of the stories, read some of the openings, and then pick a couple of recipes. Flag a few pages. If you're not from the South, flag a few pages that just feel so super quintessential Southern and you've just got to give it a try. Like that bourbon glazed ham, or there's low country boil in here too, which I have a couple of kind of faux country boils. We might try to get one up on the website, but you could also email me for that recipe, where you can just roast it in the oven if you don't have time to do a big old true low country boil setup. But have you read Pat Conroy's writing? I would love to hear about it. So feel free to make a comment down below and let me know what books of his have had an impact on your life and what you've loved. And if you've ever tried any recipes from the Pat Conroy Cookbook, or if you decide to head out and get the Pat Conroy Cookbook and try a recipe, let me know about it. I'd love to hear how it goes. The last time we went to Charleston, we were with our friends Elizabeth and Steve, and the guys went golfing, of course. And Elizabeth and I headed into town and did a tour, on an air-conditioned bus, rode around. I love that stuff. And then ended up at the visitor center, and I bought this book. And I also, the last time I was in Charleston, I don't know. Actually, I think it was the previous visit that really planted this seed. But I got really obsessed with Carolina rice. And so there were a bunch of cool, like, Carolina rice cookbooks at the visitor center too. And I bought a bunch of those too. His chapter 16 on oyster roasts. When I first arrived in Beaufort, South Carolina in 1961, I had never eaten an oyster nor entertained any plans to do so in the future. Though I grew up surrounded by salt marshes and rivers, my mother had a landlubber's disdain for all varieties of seafood, but held a special contempt for the lowly, despised oyster. I remember her wrinkling her nose as she held a pint of oysters aloft, saying, "I wouldn't eat one of those balls of mucus in a famine." Pat Conroy. But we had come to the land of great winter oyster roasts, where friends, neighbors gathered on weekends, armed with blunt-nosed knives, dining on oysters that grown men had harvested from their beds at a dead low tide that same day. An oyster roast on Defusky Island 30 years later, Jake Washington came up to me as I was devouring with great pleasure oysters he had gathered from the Checkachessie River. I don't even know where that is. Earlier that day. The afternoon was cold and clear. I washed the oysters down with a beer so icy my hand ached, even though I was wearing Shucker's gloves. That kind of description of stuff is just throughout here, all over the place. You just can't help for yourself. You just get sucked right into it. Here in St. Augustine, our oysters they're really off season right now. It's the dead of August. Actually, you know what? It just turned to the beginning of September. But what happens here, the reason they go quote unquote off season, is the water temperatures rise to a point that becomes unsafe to harvest oysters out of, because you're eating them raw or very lightly steamed. So our oysters come from Salt Run, and when they are in season, or when the water temperatures, I guess I should say is more appropriate, when the water temperatures cool and it's safe to go get oysters again, we'll get a bushel of oysters from Kyle's Seafood here. And, oh man, is that some fun times. So anyway, Pat Conroy Cookbook. I hope you'll consider adding this one to your collection, because I feel like it's not only truly usable recipes you're going to enjoy making, serving to company, but if all you ever did was just read the darn thing cover to cover, it would be so enjoyable. But I hope you'll try something out of it. Send some comments down below and let us know if you do have a copy of this, or if you do try some recipes out of it. All right, guys, it stopped raining, so I'm going to go grocery shopping, and I'll catch you next time on the Cookbook Corner. I hope you guys... Hey, guys. Okay, that was the worst ending ever. I completely cut myself off. I just hit stop record before I was ready to stop recording. So it's 24 hours later. If you think that little ending where I just cut myself off mid-sentence was annoying for you, Remember that you've lived with it for like 1/100th of a minute, and I had to live with that for 24 hours. Anyway, it's 24 hours later, and I'm not really recording today, but I just ran by the studio because I had to grab a couple of things, and I want to do a quick follow-up since that was such a lousy ending. So a quick follow-up. I want to make sure that you know that this Pat Conroy cookbook is about a lot more than low country cooking. I think I kind of alluded to that yesterday, but I mean, there's all kinds of wonderful, there's great Italian recipes in here. And I told you yesterday about that recipe for asparagus with poached egg. Look what I made for dinner last night, y'all. So, there, you can see it better there. That's my dinner last night. So when I left yesterday, okay, it did stop raining. I did go to the grocery store, and they had this beautiful asparagus. And I just had been talking to y'all about this amazing cookbook. So I didn't totally Pat Conroy it, but he was 100% the inspiration. So what I did was I went home and I made a Cheddar Aioli. Do you know how to do a Cheddar Aioli? So just take your favorite brand of mayonnaise. My favorite mayonnaise is Duke's, but I also like Hellman's and Kewpie. That's kind of an out there one, Kewpie, but it's a really good one too. You take about a half a cup of your favorite mayonnaise and you squeeze in the juice of half a lemon, and then I like to add about a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. It gives it kind of a little bit of a smoky flavor, but it also turns it a kind of pretty pale pink color. So that's fake aioli. So what I did was I just tossed the asparagus with olive oil and a little bit of coarse salt and threw it in a pan in a 450-degree oven, and just did a really quick slash roast. It kind of steam roasted because the heat was so high, but I threw it in a pan that had sides, so it kind of steam roasted. That whole thing took maybe 8 minutes. And then I put some of my fake aioli down on the plate, and then I put my asparagus on top, and then I sunny side upped a couple of eggs and topped each of these with a sunny side up egg. And I cooked up some thick bacon. I had an applewood smoked thick cut bacon, and I cut it up super chunky. So we got these just amazing bites of super chunky applewood smoked bacon. The aioli you kind of can't see because it's buried under the asparagus. Yeah. So remember yesterday, or 12 minutes ago, I guess, if you were watching this, that I told you that this cookbook, while it's really fun to read and just hang out with, there are really recipes in here that, like weeknight dinner, quick. If you just crack it open, you'll find something you can do on some random Wednesday at 7:00. The other thing I wanted to tell you about this is the river that he refers to is the Chechesee River. I think how did I say it? Chechesee? I think I got all sort of foreign with it. It's Chechesee River. Anyway, I hope you guys will give this book a try because it's really, really fun. And now I'm like so obsessed with it that I realized that one of the reasons I had to stop by here is because I'm going to cook dinner out of it again. I don't know what I'll make. I'll update it. I'll put a comment down below and let you guys know what I made tonight too. I have cooked out of this a lot over the years, but gosh, just talking to y'all about it, drummed it all up again. That's all I got for you. Chechesee River. It's not just low country cooking, Pat Conroy. And now I'll say an official nice goodbye, and I won't cut myself off. So go cook, do something lovely, and try this book if you're interested. And as always, I hope you guys have a absolutely delicious day. Bye.